your grandparents were a very, very big name. There were a lot of cases.
Amityville was real. My grandparents, my grandmother famously said it was as close to hell as she ever hoped to get. And it was terrible. When they went into the home, there are some amazing photos. There's one of what looks like a child looking out of the bedroom door. And then there's another one where there's a saint that is looking down at my grandmother, Conjuring 4. I was the first investigator. Let me change that. I was the first investigator in the Smurl case. My grandfather had sent me in there before they had even gone in themselves. They wanted me to check it out, wanted me to gather evidence. It was a hellish experience. I went there maybe 3 weekends in total. I was levitated over the stairs. The bedroom door slammed on me, and then I prayed to Padre Pio, and the whole room filled with the smell of roses. I knew he was with me. There was no Valak. You don't banish a demon by screaming its name. And my grandfather never hung outside of the window during a driving thunderstorm. Yes. Now that was a difficult case. I was just starting to work with them, and I didn't work directly on that case, but I remember my grandfather talking to me about it. He said that there were, I think, 36 demons in this child. Oh. And Arnie Johnson was 19 years old or 18 years old. He was dating David Glotzel. David was the 10-year-old coming under possession. He was dating David Glotzel's sister, Debbie. And so he was helping my grandparents. And one time he did say,
"Leave him alone, okay? Leave him alone and take me."
And my grandfather was horrified. Over the next month, Arnie started acting more and more like David, more withdrawn, more angry. He got into a fight with Debbie's landlord. And somehow he came under possession, they say, and he knifed him to death.
Let's come to one of the favorite or not so favorite items, the Annabelle doll.
Annabelle came into my life in 1970. I've grown up with Annabelle. She's always been in my life. It was owned actually by 2 nursing students in Hartford, Connecticut, back around 1969, 1970. They loved it. And then one day, the doll's arms levitated up onto the table. Back then, it was more, their reaction was very innocent. It was, oh, there must be a spirit in the doll. Once you put a name on the unknown becomes what you are forming. It would move around the house when they were at work. When they would come home, it was like it was playing hide and seek. And the girls started to become afraid. They felt like they were being watched all the time.
You also spoke about a couple of your initial cases.
There was a man in Atlantic City, he and his wife, and I watched this man come under possession about 20 times in an hour and a half. I've never seen anybody come under possession that many times that quickly.
How could we maintain sanctity of the dead and how to keep a safe distance?
Treat them with the same respect you treat the living, or even more. Remember, they're just people. If they're coming to you, it's probably because they're either lost or desperate, they're afraid, and they're looking for help.
Could you just elaborate a bit more on the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research?
We are a non-denominational global organization that helps people for free and confidentially. We're not going to expose you to the public. The Warren Legacy Foundation, the group of people that I work with, the people who volunteer their services all over the world. And we have people in India.
Today, it's going to be a little scary. And believe me, yes, it will be a little scary. Because I have somebody with over 40 years of experience in supernatural phenomena, dealing with ghosts and demonic possessions. He has a legacy of the great Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, the ones who are behind those famous cases of Conjuring, Annabelle, Amityville, and a lot more. He is a very, very high profile person. He has solved more than 10,000 plus cases. And trust me, by the time this interview comes up, there'll be a lot many more. He is the director of Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. And I introduce you to the person himself, Mr. Chris Mckinnell, who is right there sitting in Asuncion, Paraguay for us. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Namaste. It's my pleasure.
You have been bred on certain stories which featured around ghosts, demons, darkness. Could you tell me how your childhood was and your memories with your illustrious grandparents?
Well, actually, my grandparents were wonderful grandparents. They were. My grandmother was mushy. She was loving. She was the sweetest person imaginable. I knew who they were. They weren't famous when I was a young child. It wasn't until I was in middle school that they started to become well known. And that wasn't very good, to be quite honest. I was the unloved child who had the strange grandparents who believed in ghosts. I was afraid of the dark. I had some psychic abilities, and I was afraid of what I was sensing. But by the time I was 16 years old, I was on my first case, and my grandfather, I will be grateful to him for the rest of my life. He made me face my fears. He taught me that fear is the real enemy, even though I was in a case that was an over-the-top poltergeist case with pots flying across the room, a woman being clawed, two hulking black shapes coming down the stairs, the whole house shaking with pounding in the walls and growling and clawing noises. And yet, that next day, when I went home and went to bed, it was the first time in my childhood I went to bed without the light on. Fear is the enemy. We have to become comfortable with the unknown, because most of the universe is unknown to us. We can't resort to putting labels on everything. We just have to accept that we're still learning.
Amazing. And to start up with a certain case which is scary, and to conquer it is something of an achievement in itself. Could you just tell me some of your weirdest experience in your early part of your career, and the entire understanding for us of this universal nature of paranormal?
Well, let's start with that last part, the universal nature of the paranormal.
Sure.
The paranormal runs throughout the universe. I don't even like the term paranormal. It's just normal. It is part of reality. It's simply that most of us don't get to experience it. Just like most of us can't see radio waves or infrared. It's still there. I have always, since I was 10 years old, I've been trying to understand the nature of reality, the nature of God, and I've studied most of the great religions of the world. You called it my passion for the paranormal, and the truth is, I don't have a passion for the paranormal. I have a passion for truth, and I have a passion for helping people. I do this because there are too many people out there who just want clicks and likes, who just want to become famous. I don't care about that stuff. I care about helping others. And too many people live in fear. And I want to empower them. You promised people fear tonight. And yes, there will be stories that we tell that will be scary. But at the end of this, I am hoping that people are more comfortable with the unknown and they feel better about it. But my first experiences with the paranormal, when I was 16 years old, I was driving home from a party. It was my first adult party. And I looked in the rearview mirror of my car, and there was an old man sitting in the back seat. It scared the crap out of me. So about a week later, I asked my mother about this. I said, "Mom, this is what I've seen." And she pulled out this photo from the family photo album. And she said, "Is this who you saw?" I said, "Yes, who is he?" It was my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather. He had died when I was 4 years old. And my mom had prayed to him to watch over me that night. It taught me that death doesn't stop love. It continues. And that love is one of the greatest connections in the universe. But I've also seen the deadly side of things. During the exorcism of Maurice Theriault, the man known as Frenchie in the movie The Nun,
Right.
I was protecting the bishop, Bishop McKenna, during the exorcism. And my grandfather and grandmother were off to the side. They didn't actually participate at that point. They were in their mid-50s. And my grandfather didn't feel well. And my grandmother looked at him and said, "Ed, why don't you have a banana? You're probably low on potassium." My grandmother was one of the greatest psychics I've ever seen in my, well, she was the greatest psychic I've ever seen in my life. And yet, because of her own emotions, because of her own fear, she couldn't see that my grandfather was having a heart attack right then in front of her. The exorcism had done that. Although the exorcism was successful, we didn't deal with the underlying issues that made Maurice so vulnerable to the paranormal and to these negative manifestations. And a few years later, he came under possession again, and he took his own life. I've had 2 men die from possession. Now, I want to make it clear, at least in the Western world, possession is incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. Out of 10,500 cases I've had in my life, and most of them are very simple, only 12 of them have been possession cases, approximately 12. Now, here in South America, there are religious and spiritual belief systems that invite possession, and that's far more common. But it's also not dangerous. These are spirits that have been invited to take over and to manifest. Physical mediums do the same thing. They are people who invite spirits in, use them as a vehicle to communicate. So it's a form of possession, but it's a voluntary form of possession. It's only when it's involuntary that it's actually dangerous.
So, if I have to put it in, few words, that every time there is no possession, and even if there is possession, most of them is a voluntary one. The automatic possessions are still very, very rare.
I want to make it clear that when you watch these movies, you're not watching the truth. Hollywood makes fantasies, and The Nun doesn't exist at all. The only thing real about the Nun movies is Maurice Theriault was a real man. And in the first movie, in the credits at the end, you will see clips of the exorcism of Maurice.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you can go on YouTube and see 7 minutes of the exorcism. I'm right there. I'm the guy leaning over him, making sure he's okay during the exorcism.
Your grandparents were a very, very big name. There were a lot of cases, famous ones, or let's say infamous ones for some people. Could you describe the Conjuring case, which happened in the US, towards the East Coast? Let's get to the basics
about the parent case.
Yeah,
the very first.
The Perron house. I think it's on the Rhode Island.
Yes,
close to the Atlantic. So, could we just dwell upon that particular case and enlighten the audience?
Sure. I like that movie. It's my favorite of all of the Conjuring universe films, but it's not very accurate either. The case dragged on for years. It didn't have a good culmination. It petered out over time. My grandparents went in, they did their investigation. They did some things that people need to understand. My grandparents were constantly changing and learning. They didn't have anybody to teach them like I did. I had lots of great teachers, especially them. But they had to do it by themselves. It was a different time. My grandparents were still trying to understand at that point. That movie is loosely based on 3 books that were written by Andrea Perron. The other movies, like the second one, The Devil Made Me Do It, was that the second one? No, the second one was Amityville and Enfield.
Yes, Amityville.
And Amityville was real. My grandmother famously said it was as close to hell as she ever hoped to get. And it was terrible. But they were invited into that case by Channel 5 News out of New York City. after the family had fled. They didn't go in with the family. The family was too terrified to ever go back there. And they spent one day there, and they were overwhelmed. They had been attacked the night they had been invited into the house. Something had entered their home at 3 o'clock in the morning, scaring both of them terribly. And then when they went into the home, there are some amazing photos. There's one of what looks like a child looking out of the bedroom door. And then there's another one where there's a saint that is looking down at my grandmother through the horns of a moose that's hanging up on the wall. And that man was Padre Pio. He's a man, my grandmother was reading his biography the night they had been invited to Amityville when they got attacked. He's actually shown up with me on the case that would become Conjuring 4. I was the lead investigator on that one I was the first investigator. Let me change that. I was the first investigator in the Smurl case. My grandfather had sent me in there before they had even gone in themselves. They wanted me to check it out and wanted me to gather evidence. It was a hellish experience. I went there maybe 3 weekends in total. I was levitated over the stairs. The bedroom door slammed on me, and then I prayed to Padre Pio, and the whole room filled with the smell of roses. I knew he was with me. Another time I caught the sound of pig noises on my recorder. So my grandparents took that information and, of course, decided to take on the case. But going back to Conjuring 2, Amityville and Enfield had nothing to do with one another. That connection with the nun was created by James Wan. My grandparents never painted a demonic nun. My grandmother never was confronted by anything of that sort. My grandparents had horrific experiences, as have I, but not what Hollywood portrays. And Enfield, there was a man named Maurice Gross who investigated that home for 2 years. My grandparents were there maybe a week or 10 days, and the family remembers them fondly. They were the only ones that brought groceries to them because it was a poor family.
Okay.
But it was far worse than anything that was seen in the movie. And certainly the movie made it very outlandish. There was no Valak. You don't banish a demon by screaming its name. And my grandfather never hung outside of the window during a driving thunderstorm. That would be a hell of a thing. But yeah, so those are three of the movies. If you want to get into The Devil Made Me Do It, we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, of course. Please go ahead, because that's a kind of very important chapter in the entire setup. Please go ahead.
Yes. Now that was a difficult case. I was just starting to work with them, and I didn't work directly on that case. I remember my grandfather talking to me about it. He said that there were, I think, 36 demons in this child, including Beelzebub. Now, I don't personally believe in what my grandfather thought of as demons. We could talk about that later. But the boy was coming under possession. That's a fact. And Arnie Johnson was 19 years old or 18 years old. He was dating David Glotzel. David was the 10-year-old coming under possession. He was dating David Glotzel's sister, Debbie. And so he was helping my grandparents. He was holding David down when he would come under possession. He loved the boy. And one time he did say, "Take me on instead. Come into me. Leave him alone." And my grandfather was horrified because that wasn't going to solve anything, but it gave invitation to this thing to enter him.
Attempt to save the little boy, Arnie invites the demon to enter his body instead of David's. Ed witnesses the demon enter Arnie.
Over the next month, Arnie started acting more and more like David, more withdrawn, more angry, darker. And one evening, when they were supposed to be going to the movies, he got into a fight with Debbie's landlord. And somehow he came under possession, they say, and he knifed him to death.
Oh.
Now, when he was found by the police a couple of miles away, he was covered in blood. He was disoriented. He had no idea where he was or what had happened to him. And my grandfather determined he must have come under possession. He decided that in the United States, when you go to court, they have you swear on a Bible that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so he said, well, if they recognize God in court, they must recognize the devil. We're going to use possession as his legal defense. I was 16 years old, and I didn't feel that I had the right, but I said to my grandfather, Gramps, that's not a legal defense. And he said, well, 900 years ago, it was used in England. I said, but England's a different country. The United States didn't even exist back then.
Absolutely.
And of course, after they announced it publicly, it became a sensation. But when they got to court, even with all of the evidence they had, and they had a lot of evidence, the court could not accept that. They said, no, that's not a legal defense. You can't use it. And I agree, because the truth is, can you imagine if we accepted that as a legal defense? Every single murderer in the country would use that as their defense.
True. So true.
There was never an exorcism done on Arnie Johnson, and yet he is free. He is not being bothered any longer.
Whenever you or your grandparents were, trying to get into a case, what were the things, or what were the processes they used to follow? Because you just can't enter into a demon territory and try and hope that you are successful and you are getting out of it.
As I said earlier, my grandparents were constantly evolving the way they did everything, because this is a field of research, and we adapt and we change with new evidence and with new learning.
So Chris, very interesting, and as you rightly said that Conjuring, and you also pointed out the latest Conjuring film, the Conjuring 4. There is some truth, and you were there. You were part of it as far as the original case is concerned. And then the Amityville, I think Amityville, lot less people know that it happened on the Long Island. Amityville is part of the Long Island, part of the New York state, and it was a pretty slashy and exhaustive case. Not at all good things were coming out of it. And people would have seen a lot of movie. I'll still urge people to watch it, and watch it with some discretion. But yes, it was a pretty scary movie, and I think more or less it depicted a lot of things which happened on that island, as Chris has just pointed out. Chris, one thing again, let's come to one of the favorite or not so favorite items of demon or demonic possession, as people say, the Annabelle doll. Annabelle films have been very successful, again, part of the entire universe. And the center of it is that doll, which was till some time there in the museum packed. But I believe it's on a tour. The doll is on a tour.
Annabelle came into my life in 1970. I've grown up with Annabelle. She's always been in my life.
She's also a senior citizen. If I may, she's also a senior
citizen. Thank you, Ed Kid. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. Hey, goodbye. It's been nice talking to you.
No, that's only for the doll, not for you. That's not for you. Not for you.
I'm older than the doll. Be quiet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we'll just edit it out. Yeah. No, we are not going to edit it out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's a good joke.
Not going to edit it out. But your childhood friend. What about the childhood friend?
Annabelle isn't what people think it is. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the story first.
Sure.
Annabelle was owned by two nurses. Forget everything you've ever seen in any of the movies. None of them are none of them have a hint of truth to them. Not one itty bitty bit is true. Nothing. My mother is not a psychic. She's never been locked in I was locked in the museum when I was 3 years old. But my mother, no. I don't think she's ever stepped in the museum. She's terrified of it. Uh, can you imagine being a husband who buys that ugly doll for your pregnant wife as if it's a great gift? That's what the first movie's about. And I'm like, yeah, that never happened. But it was owned actually by two nursing students in Hartford, Connecticut, back around 1969, 1970. It was a housewarming gift from one of the girls' mothers, a woman named Donna. And
Yeah.
Donna and her friend loved this doll. And over time, they would talk to it. They would sit it with them at the dinner table. They would take it to bed with them. They loved it. And then one day, the doll's arms levitated up onto the table. Back then, it was more, their reaction was very innocent. It was, oh, there must be a spirit in the doll. Let's have a seance. So they contacted somebody that they knew at the hospital who claimed to be a medium. This is why I don't trust mediums or psychics without evidence. I'm a psychic and a medium, and I don't trust me without evidence. So she came up with this whole story that it was a little girl named Annabelle Higgins who had died in front of the house and was just looking for somebody to love her. The danger with this is once you give a story to something, once you put a name on the unknown becomes what you are forming. You will create that thing. I've seen it all over the world. This doll started becoming an active spirit, or perhaps the better way to say it is reactive, because it didn't have any true intelligence. It borrowed intelligence. It would leave messages in crayon saying things like, want to play? Miss me? And they didn't own crayons. It would move around the house when they were at work. When they would come home, it was like it was playing hide and seek. And the girls started to become afraid. They felt like they were being watched all the time. That's when their energy started changing, and they started feeding it something negative. One afternoon, Donna's boyfriend was sleeping on the couch, and she had a dream, or he had a dream, that Annabelle had crawled up on top of him and was choking him to death.
That was just a dream. That was a dream. That was not real.
It was just a dream.
Okay.
But he had always hated this doll, and he had wanted to burn it or throw it away. He wanted to get rid of it. So he walked across the room and he picked it up and he said, "You're a stupid doll. You couldn't hurt anyone." And he threw it across the room. And the doll acted like a hurt child. It threw a tantrum. It shook the room. The chair the doll had been sitting in flew across the room at him, and he was clawed across the chest, blood coming through his shirt. They immediately called the local Lutheran church, and they got a hold of a priest who happened to know my grandparents, and they all agreed to go check out this thing immediately. My grandfather already, even before he went in the house, he had decided this could not possibly be a ghost, because God, in his opinion, would never allow a ghost of a child to be attached to a doll. I have found that to not be true. Also, there's a danger in allowing your beliefs to run an investigation. You should never prejudge. You should also never look at the paranormal through any particular religion. Every one of them is wonderful for dealing with the paranormal, but it is limited in explaining the paranormal, which is why I rely on psychology, cultural anthropology, quantum physics, more than anything else. Anyway, my grandmother, she went in there and she could feel that heavy energy, that negative energy. And she had taught me, when you feel that, that's demonic. I do feel these things as well as her. So they decided this has to be a demon attached to the doll. Of course, the girls were happy to get rid of the doll. It was brought home. And at first, it was just sitting in a rocking chair for years, for a few years, because my grandparents didn't know how to bind the energies. One afternoon, a friend of ours, Father Bill Charbonneau, came to the house. He had a brand new car. And he said, after showing off the car, he said to my grandfather, Ed, I hear you've got a doll that attacks people. And my grandfather said, yes, Father, it's downstairs. Would you like to see it? So they went down to the basement, and Father Bill walked right up to it, picked it up, said, God is stronger than the devil, and threw it across the room. And my grandfather just looked at him and said, yes, Father, God is stronger than the devil, but no man is. As Father Bill was going home in his brand new car that evening, he said he saw a white light come out of the sky directly at him. And just before he veered off the road into the median, he saw Annabelle in the halo of the light. The car was ripped in half, his leg was broken, and we knew, you don't play with this. These are energies that are incredibly dangerous. It's just like electricity can light up the world, but it can kill you. You have to know how to deal with these things properly. The people who are taking the doll on tour do not have any clue what they're doing. I just saw an interview that was done with Dan Rivera and Tony Spera, and it hurt me so much to see this. Tony is married to my mother. He has never worked on a case. He knows nothing about the paranormal other than the stories he's heard from my grandparents. But because he's never experienced it, he doesn't believe in it. For him, this is a moneymaker. But when he first had Dan Rivera taking the doll out of the box and putting it into a travel box, that first time, Dan didn't know what he was doing either. I don't think he ever did. Mm-hmm. As he was driving along that night, he hit an intersection and he got hit by 3 cars coming from from the other 3 directions. Who possibly gets hit by 3 vehicles from 3 different directions at the same time? He said it was Annabelle that had done that. And yet they kept taking Annabelle on tour. They're exposing the public to tremendous danger. The museum is now a tourist attraction. This goes against everything my grandparents and I have ever worked for. That was never open to the public. It was always by special invitation with strict guidelines. You don't touch anything. You don't challenge anything. You treat everything with respect. It was there for education. It was there to protect the public from those things. To me, it's the Chernobyl of the paranormal world. And now it's being treated like an amusement park. Yes, I can't say that Dan died because of Annabelle. I won't say that. I won't cheapen a man's life and make his life all about his death. But I will say I've had the gas turn on my stove 3 nights in a row because I was working on a case. I've been levitated. I've had the brakes go out on my car right after breaking a curse on a family. I mean, moments later.
So you had a brake fail, you're saying? You had a brake fail after? Oh.
I know the power of the paranormal. And I can't say he died because of it, but I can say people have been killed.
I don't know for how long that tour will keep on happening. But yes, it is scary.
It's all about money. That's all they care about. They're not interested in safety. They're denying that Annabelle had anything to do with the death, which I have a problem with, because you cannot tell the world Annabelle is dangerous, Annabelle is deadly, and then when something deadly happens, they say, oh no, but it wasn't Annabelle. So you can't have it both ways.
Did you speak to your stepfather, Mr. Tony Speras, about it?
No. I haven't spoken to him in years because he's dishonoring my grandparents' memory. He is exposing the public to danger. I won't be a part of that. For years, I let him do whatever he wanted because he wasn't taking this on tour. But when the tour happened, I had to speak out against it. Now he's attacking me online. I'm not attacking him. I don't want to be attacking my family, but I have an ethical responsibility to warn the public. That's it. I'm only concerned about the safety of others.
So true, and very thoughtful of you, Chris. Chris, it is a dangerous territory, goes without saying. And yes, Annabelle was with you, or you have had memories right since your early days. Tell us about a couple of cases where you really thought it's really scary. It is really difficult, and by whosoever is watching this episode might experience goosebumps themselves. Couple of them, which are very, very scary.
There was a man in Atlantic City. He and his wife, they had problems with jealousy, and she worked with the public. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to identify them in any way. But she worked with the public, and he was jealous. He was also devoutly Catholic, and he started to come under possession. He first went to the Catholic Church for help. They did everything right. They had him get medically checked out, psychologically checked out, and then spiritually checked out. And indeed, he was coming under possession. It was real. He got a hold of me, and I sat down with him, and I watched this man come under possession about 20 times in an hour and a half. I've never seen anybody come under possession that many times that quickly. But he was working with the church. They were going to do an exorcism. I felt good. I can support this. I want to help with this. And I waited. And unfortunately, the Catholic Church is a large bureaucracy, and they didn't move fast enough. One night, his wife came home, and the man was under possession. He said, in essence, screw it, not exact words, I'm just going to kill him, talking about himself in the third person. He ran up the stairs where he had prepared a noose made out of an electrical cord, extension cord. He threw himself over the banister and killed himself. About 20 minutes later, the emergency medical technician and 2 police officers were there with the body. And the body, he was dead. He sat up, looked at the woman who was the EMT, opened his black eyes and said, he's ours, you can't have him, and then dropped back down dead again. The police officers, both of them quit the job after that. I had another case where a young girl in Costa Rica, and this is the only case I've had where I was dealing with a child under possession. It had started as black magic. It was a curse that was put on the family. The father had had an affair with a magic user. When he broke it off to stay with his family, he cursed them. And this child was the most vulnerable. I remember the day that I was being brought there for the first time. The family did not know I was coming. It was just my partner was bringing me to the house. And he called the family to tell them he was coming. And in the background, I could hear the girl screaming, "Don't bring that priest here. I'm not going to see that priest." I'm a pastor. But she knew I was coming, even though nobody had told her. We were able to free her, but her mother ended up dying within a week of the successful exorcism. I don't like thinking about magic. I've been under magical attack. I know it's real, but I have to think about it as energy that's being directed with negative intention. It can also be directed with positive intention, and that works as well.
So in a nutshell, you say that even despite somewhere a successful exorcism, a successful case, there are forces which are beyond our control. And
Yes.
Yet, let's say in this case, after a week, thing took an entire U-turn. So there are forces, and some are definitely beyond our control.
That's true. The entire path of life. There are things that are always beyond our control. That's where faith comes in. Faith that whatever happens, it's part of the plan. It's part of our soul's journey. It's what's necessary to help us to grow. Not that we don't have free will, we do. But life is constantly presenting us with opportunities to grow. It's up to us whether we learn them or we fail to learn them.
When you're talking about the daughter in this case, and a lot of cases, you're talking there's certain trauma which they have to live for the rest of their lives. So could you stress upon what we all understand as collective trauma and energetic residue, because energies leave their imprints and the trauma is always there. Could you just enlighten us on these things as well?
One thing I learned from the Maurice Theriault case is that we must look for the underlying reason, the problem that's occurring in the family or the person that makes these negative manifestations possible, because it never happens in a well-adjusted, happy family. My grandmother taught me, if you can just get the family to clean their home, to make it happier, to put sunlight into the home and comedy and laughter and love, you've already solved half of the problem. When these things are not resolved, then the paranormal can manifest in a very destructive way. That's why the Warren Legacy Foundation, the group of people that I work with, the people who volunteer their services all over the world, and we have people in India.
Certainly.
They're dedicated to helping. I am so humbled to work with these folks. But we always deal with things holistically. We must not just deal with the spiritual. We have to deal with the mental and the psychological, or mental and the physical. Whatever the issue is it drug abuse? Is it mental health issues? Is it just a simple medical problem? It doesn't mean that there isn't also something paranormal going on. That's the vehicle for the paranormal to manifest. When there are other things, though, too, like, for instance, in a location where there might have been a tremendous battle, that leaves an imprint. I call it temporal overlap, where there's a conscious tether to a moment in time where something traumatic happened. When we are afraid, when we're angry, we are producing more electromagnetic energy. We're pumping out more. My theory is psychics are very, very sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. We know for a fact that everybody is if they're too high. We feel haunted, we feel watched, we get nervous. And I think that the reason we do that is that it's a biological memory, that when we feel something like that, it's because there's a spirit nearby or something paranormal.
So you understand that there is a relation, even if people don't want to admit it, there is a relation between humans and the dead. And if humans have sanctity of their own, so do the dead. But there are Ouija boards, there are lots of other mediums to get in touch with souls. Some people want to just interact with their loved ones who are dead early. So the intentions are pretty cool. For others, it's fun and entertainment, and Annabelle Doll, the tour, is one aspect of it. So how do you, or what message would you give to people with your own experiences that, how can one maintain the sanctity of the dead, not to touch it, so that because the safest way to live ultimately is to make sure you are miles away from the dead or the demon. How could we maintain sanctity of the dead and how keep a safe distance?
Treat them with the same respect you treat the living. or even more. Remember, they're just people. If they're coming to you, it's probably because they're either lost or desperate, they're afraid, and they're looking for help. Maybe they've got unfinished business. On the other hand, it could be something good. It could be that they're just making sure that you're all right. You know, when you hear footsteps in the night, it's not the devil. It's probably the old man that used to live there, or it's your grandmother, just letting you know she's still watching over you. I do not like that people treat this as a hobby. I don't like that people treat it as something cool. It isn't. That would be like practicing surgery without a medical degree. Don't do it. Don't try spirit communication. If the spirit is desperate enough to communicate with you, they will find a way, I promise you. But you shouldn't go looking for them. And the energy you give out, fear, excitement, anger, whatever you're going through, that's what you're going to attract, because you're calling out to them with your aura. They see that. That's what's drawing them to you. They don't see your physical body. They see your light. And if your light is a dark light, you're going to attract something dark. I believe that death is a very, very important part of life, that it gives meaning to life, immediacy to life. I can't imagine living forever. We would go insane with the pressure of being the same forever, even though we are constantly changing. Death teaches us to love while we can. And then when we die, we either pass over, or through free will, for one reason or another, we stay on. But if we're passing over, that's when we start working on what we did in the past lifetime and preparing for the next lifetime. Even my grandparents believed in reincarnation. My grandfather taught me regression hypnosis when I was 16.
Did you have had a? I'm sure you would have had a regression session. So if I take you, so instead of taking you to the future, if I take you back, and if I may ask you as well, that what did you figure out if in a previous life or something? And because there has to be a connect of a previous life to what you're doing right now. So
Yes.
So
Yeah,
what is
remember
that connect?
I remember a few of my lifetimes in some detail. I remember my last lifetime more than any other.
Mm-hmm.
What I have discovered is the sense of self, my ego. That's not real. You know, this person, this isn't the real whole person. I'm not the person I was 10 years ago. I'm going to be a different person in 10 years. And in that last lifetime, I was somebody completely different. I was a man, an American. I was in World War I. I was a young man. I remember mustard gas coming down the hillside toward me at night. And I was struggling with my gas mask. And a friend of mine helped me put it on. When we returned to the Midwestern part of the United States in the 1920s, I had started a grocery store, and he was working as a farmer. We married two sisters.
Wow.
The other memory I have of that lifetime is I was in the 1950s. I had ended up somehow in Texas, and I was a sheriff's deputy, and I pulled someone over for speeding or for some other reason that I don't know, and I was killed.
Oh.
I was a protector in that lifetime, and I guess I still am. Although I think I'm more of a healer now.
So there's no point in finding a killer as well. I mean, he would be long dead. Maybe he might have even spoken to you as a spirit. Who knows?
I think that when we connect with that higher self that is us, that part of us that's still outside of this universe, that self is connected with all of our lifetimes. And we have access to those memories. if we concentrate on them. Personally, I've always had faith that I'm on the right path, that God, whatever God is shaping me for his plan. That's what my faith has taught me. I don't need to understand the mind of God. I used to try, and I've now realized how stupid that was. To me, I follow the Hindu proverb, there are many paths up the mountain. It's only the fool running around the bottom saying you're going the wrong way who never gets any closer to the top.
Hmm.
I believe that God doesn't care about your spiritual path. He cares about how you put your faith into practice and help others. It's all about love and compassion. That's what brings us closer to God.
So let's dwell upon something which you have touched upon before as well on some of your earlier talks, like sacred spaces, temples and energy imprints. And pretty fascinating topic. I think viewers will be very excited to know about it. There's a lot into it which concerns all of us. So please, could you take it from here, please?
Certainly. I've been blessed to be at some of the most sacred places in the world. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Rock on the Mount, different Wats in Thailand, or in Nepal. The devotion that people have in those locations leaves such a beautiful, energetic imprint. It lifts you up. I have seen the power of prayer in action. There are actually scientific studies that have been done that have proven that, to a small degree at least, concentrated prayer for others can make a difference. It can improve health. It has a tangible physical effect. When we connect with the divine, there is something greater than us going on. It doesn't matter if you just think of it as the universe, although my problem with that is that's like saying the table is the carpenter. The carpenter is separate from the table. The universe and God are not the same. But however you find your way to that power, I think it's through ritual and focused intention and faith, or belief, if you want to use that word instead. That's what gives it power. And in those locations, that many people over that many, many years, of course, those are going to be places of power.
So to all those kind of people, who are troubled, could well be troubled in future, what you can say, Chris, which could well, give them a doorway to a bit more safety, a bit more insurance to their problems?
You're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're not alone. There are more people who have experienced what you have than you could possibly imagine. And if you need help, reach out. That's what I'm here for. That's what the Warren Legacy Foundation is here for. I'm not alone in doing this work. I couldn't. I'm just one man. But the people that work with me are amazing. And we are all here to help.
Could you just elaborate a bit more on the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research? Because you're doing a lot of good work across the globe, and there would be people who would like to reach out to you. So what all work you have done, where all you are centered across, and how people can reach you. Please enlighten us on that as well.
Certainly. We are a non-denominational global organization that helps people for free and confidentially. We're not going to expose you to the public. If that's what you want, we're not going to do it anyway. So don't come to us for that. We think of this as God's work, whatever God is. This was an organization started with my grandmother. She and I started this together right after the first Conjuring movie came out. We were being inundated with requests for help from all over the world. And I had already been doing my research all over the world. And I went to my grandmother and we agreed this was a good plan. But it has never been about me. It's the people that do this work are the best. They are the most loving, caring, compassionate people. You will find safety here. Now, don't get me wrong. We're going to ask uncomfortable questions, but we're doing it out of a place of love and compassion for you. We're not judging you. If we don't have the complete picture of what's going on in your life, then we are not going to effectively be able to help you. It would be like you going to the doctor because you're bleeding out of your butt and all you want to talk about is the pain in your hand. I can't help you with the real problem if you don't tell me what it is. So when you do come to us, please come to us with an open heart and let us really help you.
And for that, what we can do is we will give the links to your site to people in the description in the video below, and they can access it. And trust me, I've myself sampled it, and it's pretty easy. Just open yourselves up, and Chris's beautiful team is there to help you out as well. And of course, they have their roots in India because we are headquartered in India. But I'm saying for people who are watching it across the globe, but I think Chris and team, they've handled a lot of cases, and I'm sure they are willing to handle a lot more for people who really need it.
Absolutely.
Chris, you have taken forward the legacy of your illustrious grandparents. I mean, it's for everyone to see. And you've nurtured it pretty well, and you've kept it pretty private for people so that it, as an individual, nobody, is singled out, or, his or her problems are not, getting into public. Everything is done pretty discreetly. But what I want to ask you is, now, how will this legacy would be taken forward through you and through the organization? Because there's something which we all want to happen, this to happen for years and years and years to come.
It's not about me. This organization will go on without me. I know it will. I have faith in that. I have good people, and they will continue the work. Right now, yeah, I'm the face of the foundation. I understand that. But as I have more and more opportunities to educate the public, not just about myself, but about the foundation itself, then I don't need to be the face anymore. People will think of that. And that's what really keeps us going.
Could you just describe any case where somebody wanted your help, but due to certain religious beliefs, they didn't want you to, trespass a bit more, and you were in a flux?
Yes. Oh, yes. This is so frustrating for me. When I can give the person the tools they need, or when they have the tools at their disposal, but their fear and their religious beliefs keep them from making that step. And this is far too common here in South America, where people are taught that everything is demonic, there are no ghosts because they're Catholic. They label anything that they don't understand as evil. And yet, it often isn't. Even when we're dealing with people with psychic abilities, they are often labeled witches. And often they will internalize that themselves, and they will feel evil. It breaks my heart to see people living in such fear and ignorance of what I at least think of as reality. They don't need to be that way. I have been dealing with one young lady for years who feels that she's under a curse. Whether or not she is, I haven't been able to determine. I don't see that much evidence of it. But I've offered her different ways to protect herself, different ways to feel better about herself, and to cleanse herself spiritually. She won't do it. She's too afraid that this goes against her Catholic beliefs and that she'll go to hell if she does it. Even though I'm talking about things in a very Christian way for her, it's still not good enough. Yeah, it can be frustrating.
You also want like-minded people to turn up and join your movement per se.
It's a little different than that. We're very careful about who we allow into the foundation. We don't just want like-minded people. We want people with experience who are open-minded, who we can count on to put the client first, the people we serve first. So it's a hard process to get into the foundation because the people we serve are everything to us. But yes, we need new people. We need to build a larger infrastructure, especially in India. I mean, you're 1/6 the human population. We've only got 3 people in India right now.
You need a lot more.
Yeah.
So yes, so I think message from Chris is pretty much clear. If you have the skills, expertise, and the will to serve people in a very, very noble way, then I think Chris and his foundation is the right calling for you. And again, as I told before, you can get in touch. The details are there in the description as well. And get on with it. So Chris, a big thank you to you. First of all, it has been an incredible, last 1.5 hours with you. You and your family's contribution to helping people's lives go beyond decades of work. It's kind of a worship which you have done. It's nothing sort of sacred, that kind of help you have done. And just to make sure that people are safe, you have put your entire life to it, and I'm very sure that you will keep on doing that and making people's life a lot better. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been wonderful talking to you with on almost a 12-hour time zone difference on different spectrums of the globe, and was really, really insightful, Chris. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you very much, Ankit. I'm very humbled to be here, and I appreciate it very much.